Hello again and welcome back to the MSC YouTube studio. My name is Charity Ekezie and this time I am joined with Dr. Annette Weber. Weber, did I get it correct? Okay, she is the European Union Special Representative for the Horn of Africa. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Sherry.
So, you are a human rights defender. That is something that's really intriguing. And you are also a conflict resolution expert. And you have worked in Somalia and Sudan for a couple of years right now. So
Decades.
decades. Yes. So one of the main things you advocate for as the EU special representative in the Horn of Africa is that you promote the EU's political goals in that region. Now, can you give me a brief summary of what this job entails?
Yes, I would like to start with Sudan. We had the revolution in Sudan in 2018-19. There was a lot of aspiration, young people going to the street, calling for democracy, and I think this is when the EU came out in very strong support to Sudan. We then had a coup and afterwards a war. For us, this means that we still keep the promise that we gave to the young people, that we gave to the people of Sudan, that we want to support their aspirations towards democracy. So we're working a lot with the civilians, with civilian groups, with individuals, with activists, with young people, with old people, with people inside, with people outside. So this is a very strong focus we have to really bring a civilian transition back to Sudan, or help bringing a civilian transition back to Sudan. But unfortunately, of course, most of my work right now is on conflict mediation. So trying to see if there is an entry point to get the two belligerent parties in Sudan to an understanding that basically ending the war is more in their benefit than continuing the war. Yeah. I think on Sudan this is not so easy, but I would like to come to maybe a more positive example. In that region, we had a very tough and rough 2024 between Ethiopia and Somalia, but we managed last year to find a way to get the two sides together, not just to talk, but also to understand that, and this is very much an EU DNA, that regional economic integration, building bridges rather than dividing, is in the interest of both sides. So this is roughly, a lot of conflict resolution, a lot of bridge building. This is my job, but my job is also a regional job. So it's not in the countries only, but it's also connecting the countries in the region, and of course also hoping for this region to become a stronger region and a more unified region.
Exactly, just like you said, because you're more focused in the region of the Horn of Africa, I would like to know what the importance of the Horn of Africa is.
To the EU?
Yes.
I mean, it's important because it's our neighbor. It's basically our direct neighborhood. If you look at the waterways, the Mediterranean goes through the Red Sea. The Red Sea, 25% of our trade go through the Red Sea. Underwater cables, our connectivity, quick connectivity is also going through the Red Sea. We are receiving green hydrogen from the Gulf through the Red Sea. So the Red Sea is really a nexus for us. This is hard security interest, but of course it's also the interest to have the region a stable region. We do want the region to function as a region, a strong region, because of course we also want to engage with the region in trade. We want to engage with the region in political relations, as we do with all countries, but we also want to support the aspiration of the young people in the region, because of course, as you know, basically all member states of the EU, the big discussions now are on migration. So we feel very strongly that if young people can shape the future in their own countries, in that region, that is definitely a better solution than having the migration issue moving to the Mediterranean.
That's amazing. So the conflict in Sudan has been going on for quite a while now. So I'd like to know what the current situation is at the moment, and how do you think this conflict can be resolved, like in your own perspective?
I think the conflict can be resolved today. We have two sides, and we could end having 10, 20. We could end having a Somalia scenario. We could end in a Sudan that is not governable. And I think this is why the red flags that we see right now should really be red flags for the two sides to say, okay, what do we want? How do we want a unified Sudan? Territorial integrity is important to us as Europe, as you know from Ukraine, where we stand very strong behind the unity of Sudan. And I think if we can make the case for what is beneficial to the people of Sudan, it's clearly not beneficial to have 12 million people internally displaced. It's not beneficial to have more than 20% on the verge of starvation. It's not beneficial to have more than half of the population in need of outside humanitarian intervention. This is not beneficial. So if you really want to have a strong country as a leadership, you need to negotiate with your nemesis, with your enemy, to come to a solution. And I think what is in the interest of the region is also that Sudan is not going to fall apart, that it's not becoming an ungoverned space. So I believe it's possible. I believe it's possible if the two parties can agree to how do they want, this peace to be shaped. But then it's also very important for the Sudanese themselves, for the Sudanese civilians, to tell us how do they want to see the future of Sudan.
Yeah. Okay, so you've mentioned a couple of interests by the EU in the Horn of Africa and in Sudan, of course, but is the EU doing anything specifically to resolve the conflict in Sudan? And if there are, what exactly it is? Or is it? Sorry, what exactly is it that you're doing? Sorry, my English.
What we're doing, I think, even before the war, of course, we have been a very strong provider for humanitarian aid, ongoingly, not just in Sudan, but in the region. You might remember the Paris conference last year. That was the first pledging conference for humanitarian aid on Sudan. We did bring the civilians across the board, from very progressive young people, emergency rooms, very conservative old structures, from inside the country, from rural areas. We did manage to bring these people together for them to also tell us and tell their leaders, stop the war and get out of this conundrum. What we also do is working on critical infrastructure, because as you have seen, there's a lot of attacks on critical infrastructure, on dams, for example. So the electricity is out in 5 states in Sudan. Water dams are partially not holding because they are attacked. So these are entry points for us where we're saying, look, this is something where the people are suffering if you destroy your own critical infrastructure, and it takes decades. So this is where we're working. And of course, we are working with the African Union very closely on civilian processes. And we're working with the international community to understand that fueling the war is also not helping to come to an end.
True. Okay, so that's my question, but I have, 2 final questions. One question and one ask. You are an amazing woman. I've read up on you, and I've seen that you've done a lot of things in your career. You've been a musician at some point. You've written books. You've even, you're a journalist at some point. Now, have you ever faced, of course, I know you have, but I would like to know what challenges you faced as a woman coming up in your career, even up until now, where gender equality is a big issue?
Never take it for granted. It's a process. You're never there. And I think this is where you need strong allies. You need to understand that this is not just your own battle. You need to connect. And I think it's also something where getting the new generation to understand not just being nice is not going to cut it.
Yeah. I think that advice is for me.
Sorry to say
the
that.
advice is for me. Thank you so much. Okay, so one final ask. You've been in Africa, of course. You've heard a lot of our languages and everything. So I want you to say one thing in African. Well, I'm Igbo. And my dialect is Igbo. So I'm from the Igbo tribe of Nigeria. Can you say Dalu?
Dalu?
Oh, hey, there you go. That means thank you. So Dalu, thank you so much for joining me today, Dr. Annette. Can I call you Anne? I feel like we're friends now. Thank you so much for joining me. I truly appreciate this.
Thank you very much. Thank you.